This is an Hvlp spray gun. This is an Hvlp spray gun. And this is an Hvlp spray gun. Let's talk about the difference. Welcome back to the shop. You can see on top of the table saw over here that Mara is in the throes of making more of the table looms that we make, but I digress. I'm not going to do a video about that because already a 3-part series on making those, link in the description. This is about spraying, and I'm going to do the review I promised for the gun I used in the kitchen cabinets. So, let's first state for the record that I'm not an expert. Not in any way, shape, or form I'm an expert painter. I do know how to paint and how to spray paint and how to brush paint, all that, but I don't do it for a living and never have. So I'm not an expert. But I'm going to give you some background and information about the spraying techniques and the tools. Step number 2, Hvlp, what is it? Now, for those out there who are watching this video who know all this information already, not insulting your intelligence, I'm just, I want everybody to get an idea what's going on here. So Hvlp stands for high volume, low pressure. What that means is there's a high volume of product being applied to the work surface through a gun with low pressure. I've sprayed years ago using siphon spray guns for cars and things like that. They, at the high end, run at 50 psi. I can't remember how many CFM that is, but 50 psi. You get a much finer droplets with that, but the downside is up to 70% of your paint product can wind up in the air. So that's why you need a spray booth or something akin to a spray booth, or don't shoot in your garage. Along comes Hvlp. Now you get a high volume of product at low pressure, typically around 20 pounds, 10 CFM. And that gives you laying more product on your workpiece, so your actions are going to be a little different, but at a low pressure, so it doesn't have a lot of overspray running around inside the shop. In fact, I sprayed the kitchen cabinet doors in the last video series in the shop, and all I did was put plastic around the tools, but I never got any overspray anywhere else in the shop. So let's go back to the tools that I showed in the introduction. This is a professional Hvlp gravity feed spray gun. This runs off an air compressor, has a regulator on the inlet side, so you can adjust the pressure here. It's got a myriad of adjustments for spray pattern, vertical, horizontal spray, how much is coming out. Normally I'd also have a desiccant fixture on the bottom of here, a little bulb that dehumidifies the air, because air coming out of an air compressor typically contains a bit of moisture. And the paint and moisture don't get along. If you spray paint without getting the moisture out of the air, you're going to wind up with fisheye, orange peel, things like that. Lousy surface. I don't use these anymore. If I ever do some automotive painting again, I might. I've got a set of these, 3 different sizes. Nice gun, but I don't use it anymore. This is, that big heavy thing I showed earlier. This is my first Hvlp sprayer. It has a hose that connects to the back here and to the gun. The process is the same. It has an orifice, a tip and a needle and an air cap. Adjustment for in here for how deep the orifice is. Adjustment for the needle. Makes a lot of noise. It has a turbine and an air warmer in here, and what that does is it sends air down the hose to the gun, warms the air to reduce moisture in it as well. I'm going to sell this because I don't think I need it anymore. Now on to the gun I used in the previous video series, and that was painting the kitchen cabinet doors. This is the Homeright Finish Max Super. It's a nice little spray gun. It's a little top heavy until you get some paint down here. Then it's much better balanced. It has the same adjustments that one does. It has an adjustment here for the needle, and has for the trigger. It has an adjustment here for how much product you're going to put out through the nozzle. It has This is the turbine here. It has an air filter in the back. I don't know about moisture, but I didn't have any problems with it. It has an identical air cap to any needle and seat, needle and orifice that every other sprayer in the world has. It came with the green tip. As I've said in the previous videos, it was the perfect tip mounted in here for the product I was going to spray, which is latex on cabinets. It came with the red and blue tips, and these are for thinner and thicker material. So the blue tip's for a thinner material, the red tip's for a thicker material. If you look at this chart, it's in the instructions. It shows you what the color code is, what the product you're going to be spraying, and what air cap to use. We have two air caps, a black air cap and a yellow air cap. More on that later. Comes with a teeny little wrench, 9mm. That's a 9mm for the orifices, and then it's got little wrench bits here for taking the needle caps off. So you can change the needles along with the orifice, because the orifices have, no, I spilled on the floor. I'll get them. The orifices have different sizes, and the needles are matched to those sizes. So let me pick up my parts here off the floor. Now, let's get a little closer to this, and I can show you some of how the parts of this work. Here's an example of, this is the red tip. See how fat that is? That's for doing very thick paints and materials. This is the blue tip, which is much smaller than the green tip. This is for doing finer things like varnishes and stuff like that. Come on, focus. There's the needle and there's the tip. So let's take it apart and show you how all that works. So it comes apart really easy. It has a screw cap that holds the air cap inside. And then it has a spring-loaded piece, more on that later. And there's the orifice, nozzle, and the needle. Can you, in camera? Yeah. See the needle going in and out. A little tip for this particular gun. When you're going to take this and exchange it for another tip and needle, I highly recommend you pull the trigger in before you start unscrewing it. The reason being is there's spring pressure holding it inside the orifice, and since it's aluminum parts, you have a chance of galling these parts. So this unscrews. I'm holding the trigger in, and there's the needle, and there's the orifice. Now when I go to put this back on, I'm going to pull the needle in, pull the trigger, screw it back in place, and now I'm free to let go of the trigger. That's just to protect the needle and the orifices. So this is the spray mechanism. You got air and paint coming out of here. You got air coming out of here. This little spring-loaded piece goes in first, like so. Got to get it. Come on, get in there. There. That goes in first. Then the air cap goes on top of that, and then the cover cap goes on top of that, and it screws together. Now, the reason for the spring-loaded part. Notice that the air cup is vertical. There's little air nozzles here and here. This air cup is vertical. This will give you a spray pattern that's flat this way. In other words, your fan will be horizontal. If you now the spring-loaded part allows you to flip this to the horizontal position for the air cap, which gives you a vertical fan. Now, 90% of your spraying is probably going to be with a vertical fan because you're going back and forth across a flat piece of material. If you go 45 degrees, like so, that gives you a round pattern. Oh, by the way, it also comes with a little cleaning brush. Isn't that cool? A cleaning brush? And a cap for the paint bucket, so you can take this off, cap it, a cover, and store it. Then you can clean this out and store it. So, to give you an idea of how fat it can pull stuff up, that pickup tube is huge. So it can really pick up some heavy stuff. I'm really impressed with how this thing works. Now on to the air caps. We got two air caps. The black one which is for 90% of the majority of the painting you would do, has relatively small air orifices here and here. Now, if you're going to go to thicker material, you use the yellow air cap. If you look at these holes here, they're huge for the fan spray. So it can handle that thicker material. Yeah, I'll put it all back together now. Oops, gotta put the air cup on and the cover on. One thing was missing out of this kit that I need to order is a viscosity cup. Viscosity cup is a measured cup with a specific size hole in the bottom of it. And you pick up your paint product and time it as it comes out till that cup empties. And that gives you a viscosity number that you can figure out through the manual. And it tells you what orifices you should use and needles and you should use to spray that product. But again, the chart that comes in the manual really tells you exactly what you need to do to spray thinner to thicker materials. Now in the video I'm showing you now, you can see I'm spraying, this is when I started spraying the second batch of doors. I want you to see a mistake I'm making in this video. If you haven't seen it already, let me show you. You've probably seen painters on television shows doing kind of painting with airless paint sprayers or with siphon cup sprayers. And the technique is 90 degrees to your surface. So when you start your spray, you're 90 degrees to your surface, you pull the trigger and you come across, and when you go off the surface, you release the trigger. Trigger on, off the surface, release the trigger. In that video, I was actually flipping it a little bit on either side, which is incorrect spraying technique. Basically, like I said, start off of your workpiece, pull the paint on, come across your workpiece, release the paint. Real simple, easy to do. So that's that. Is this by any way, shape, or manner a professional tool? No, it's not. It's a really good tool for the hairy homeowner. It's a very good tool for the small shop that doesn't need to do a lot of painting or a lot of finish work with a sprayer. I highly recommend it for that. But if you're going to do a lot of spraying and you're going to be doing it week after week after week, I highly recommend you spend the extra money, get the really expensive airless paint sprayers and use those. There's quite a few out there on the market. Now, this is the mid to, not quite the low end of the market, but kind of mid of the market. Wagner has some that go from this level on up, and then there's others that are professionals that go up to $1,000 or more. And if you're not, you got to make that pay for itself. So that's my Homeright finish sprayer. I like it a lot. I'll be using it until it probably dies. One more little tip about spraying. You can shoot with this gun and then put it down, let it sit for a couple of hours if you're waiting for a paint to flash off or something, and then go back to spraying. But the tip is, make sure that you clean off the tip here where the needle comes in and out of the orifice, and clean off the fan jets here and here to make sure they're nice and clean. And make sure there's no paint bridging the gap between the orifice or tip and the air cap, because that will cause all kinds of horrible splattering and nastiness. So make sure this is all nice and clean before you start spraying again. The manual, as I said earlier, is very comprehensive. Has that chart in there that I showed you. It shows you the tips, how to disassemble the gun, how to clean the system, how to use it, how to adjust it, and how to shoot. It tells you even in here, don't swing the gun across your workpiece. Shows you how to set up your patterns and all that kind of good stuff. So that's that. So I recommend this gun for hairy homeowners, small work, small shops, not a lot of heavy use. Go to a better gun if you're going to go heavy use, but for my purposes, this is absolutely perfect. So until next time, make great things out of wood.